Welcome to episode 3 of Sportsball with Nick and Jamal. By way of a reminder, I'm Nick.
I'm Jamal.
He's Jamal. We had a little bit of a lull between episode 2 and 3 because you were off covering the Final Four.
Yep, running through the March Madness tournament.
Pour one out for Sparty.
Yikes.
I want to start off talking about, Jamal, if you didn't see it, you need to go look it up, did an editorial. We'll put a link in the comments section here to your editorial on fighting in hockey. It was spurred by the Alex Ovechkin Svechnikov fight where he knocked out a 19-year-old kid.
5 punches.
Yeah, so talk a little bit about, sum up what you're saying about fighting in hockey.
First things first, in this specific instance, I will concede that Andrei Svechnikov just picked a fight with a much bigger guy. He wasn't in the same weight class as Alexander Ovechkin. So it was a mismatch to begin with. But the point that I'm making about fighting is that I don't think it's needed in the game of hockey anymore. Hockey has evolved to the point of needing to have, not necessarily enforcers, but just fighting in the game itself. There's more to lose and less to gain nowadays. You're paying players more than ever, so financially it could be a great loss if a player's out for a significant amount of time. For example, in this incident, Andrei Svechnikov is going to miss Game 4.
Second overall pick in the draft.
Had 20 goals this season, was 4th most on the team, and those 20 goals were 4th most amongst NHL rookies. So the kid's been doing very well. He's going to miss Game 4 with a concussion that he sustained falling onto the ice after getting punched in the face.
And what if this had been Ovechkin's hand? Guy chasing Gretzky's scoring record, defending Stanley Cup MVP.
One of the all-time greats, definitely the offensive catalyst for the Capitals team. Clutch on the power play, as good as it gets with that shot from the circle. And yet, if he had hurt himself in a fight and had to miss a significant amount of time, hurts the Capitals' chances of defending their Stanley Cup.
Would Capital fan like that, who loved him knocking out Svechnikov, would they be loving it?
They would have called him, not necessarily an idiot, but they would have strong words for Ovechkin because he doesn't fight often. But if he got into a fight and hurt himself and hurt the team's chances of repeating, fans would have hated that decision.
So you come at this from a very logical perspective about money and whatnot, and it all makes great sense. I come at this from a conflicted position, by the way, as a former player, as a kid, as a guy who's refereed for his entire adult life. I enjoyed the fights when I was a kid, as you've said you did as well. So I'm conflicted. I still, in some ways, think that there is a role for fighting in hockey, but on the other hand, I acknowledge the fact we now know how damaging these are up here to guys' heads. Who knows how bad Svechnikov is hurt? And is it needed in a sport? Because personally, I want to see 7 goals a game, hard hitting, lots of shots, and guys running fast all over the ice. It's dangerous enough as it is. This, to me, has become more and more ancillary as we've gone on, and the NHL doesn't even promote it anymore.
Correct. And, and it's funny because when I'm talking about this, there's 2 main factors that drive why I think fighting needs to be done. The first one's kind of financial. You mentioned Svechnikov. 2nd overall pick, obviously the future of the franchise. His salary cap hit is $3.5 million. So it's not exactly as if he's making peanuts. So you're not losing a guy who's making the veteran minimum here. You're losing a guy who's obviously expected to be the forefront of your organization. Financially, is that the guy that you want getting hurt because he decided to mix it up in the middle of a game? Not really. The second thing is health. We talked about head injuries. We've talked about CTE. We've talked about making the game safer. Sports evolves. You look at the NFL, there's no more clotheslines like there was when Deacon Jones played, and the steel curtain and those,
Just because something has always been one way does not mean it has to continue being that way.
Sports always changes. The games get safer. And I'm sure some football fans might not like that the head hunting is no longer in the game, but I guarantee the players feel a little bit safer about that. Baseball changed when Buster Posey broke his ankle at home plate. Now catchers can't block the plate before they receive the ball. Sports evolves. Hockey needs to evolve too.
Let me ask you a question. Somebody asked me, a person that I respect a great deal, asked me on my Facebook page about this when I shared your op-ed. They said, why does the media, and talking about us, and this is a good question, every time there's a major injury or looks to be with a hockey fight, we start screaming from the rafters about fighting, but a 95-mile-an-hour, being at somebody's, melon starts a bench-clearing brawl in baseball, and we don't talk. Yasiel Puig tried to take on an entire team, and we don't say anything about that. And he's right to an extent.
We talked about that today in the Whitecaps press box. I shot the Whitecaps game today against the Lansing Lugnuts, and I'm sitting up there talking to people who've been around sports for their entire lives, and specifically the game of baseball. and we said was now that guys are throwing faster than ever,
Yep.
middle relievers and late inning guys are throwing 98, 100, 101. Obviously, Aroldis Chapman bringing it 105.
Yu Darvish hit a guy with a 99-mile-an-hour fastball in the junk the other day.
Thank you. This is a different era of baseball where throwing at a guy no longer needs to happen as well, because now you got serious injury that's going to come along with it.
In the 60s and 70s, fastballs were about 85, 90 miles an hour.
Or you had one guy like Nolan Ryan, one guy who was bringing it 95 to 100. Now you got a roster full of guys who are throwing as hard as ever. You're really going to hurt someone. And I agree. You can throw behind a player. You can throw, on the ground. Throwing at a guy in this day and age doesn't need that.
But there is a double standard. We don't talk about it in baseball with bench clearing brawls, or even in basket brawls like we do with hockey.
You know why? Bench clearing brawls in baseball are pointless, because here's what happens. Someone gets upset, a pitch was thrown too close to someone,
somebody
bench is
flipped a bat.
clear, they come out and they stare at each other. Do you know why they don't really fight? Because there are serious consequences in the game of baseball for actually fighting. It's one thing to leave the bullpen, leave the dugout, come and argue with each other and yell and scream, but the second someone puts hands on someone else, the second a punch gets thrown, you got fines, you got suspensions coming your way.
You know what's ironic about this, and I can't remember quite what the rule is in the NHL, but you can leave the dugout, you can leave
baseball,
baseball, you can leave the bullpen and no consequence. If you jump the boards for a fight in hockey, there are serious consequences.
In the NBA, if you step off the bench, if you step onto the floor, automatic ejection and a fine, possible suspension as well.
So other things to talk about there. Other thing I wanted to bring about, and I got to eat a little crow.
Yep.
I got to eat a little crow because I said Tiger Woods was done.
Yes, you did.
I said he was washed up. I said, and I actually stand by this one, he is not the greatest player going today, but he won the Masters.
Now, George and I had a good laugh at this one because the quote that we remember specifically was, he's not the best golfer in my lifetime. That's what Nick Lefebvre said. Not the best golfer in my lifetime.
I don't know if I remember that quote. I don't know if I remember that.
We'll find the video of that. We'll pull that up for sure. But it's one of those things where he comes out, and we had talked about how well the Thursday and Friday he had at the Masters. First 2 rounds he looks good, but then you got to finish it. Well, what Tiger showed down the stretch was the experience that the other golfers lacked. While everyone's trying to muscle the ball over the water onto the green, Tiger does the safe thing, lays it up, takes the long 2-putt, and he ends up taking the lead in the last round of the Masters because he'd been there before. He was smart enough. Now his body is finally healed enough to be able to match his wits, and he looks like the golfer that we used to know when he was running roughshod over the PGA.
Okay, so let me amend or correct my previous statement.
Uh-huh.
Greatest golfer I have ever seen in my 40 years on this planet.
Mm-hmm.
At this moment in time, I don't think he's the odds-on favorite week after week like he was in the early 2000s.
I agree with you because people need to see it consistently. But what happens is, and it doesn't have to be next weekend.
If he wins at Bethpage Black, though.
If he wins one of his next 2 events, right? Now you're talking about 2 out of your last 4, 2 out of 3. He'll be the favorite probably in every tournament for the rest of the year, or unless something crazy happens, because he's that good and he's that much of a name that you're not going to bet against Tiger Woods once he's hot. That's asinine.
No. So, but either way, this was amazing to watch him win that tournament. That was something 11 years, I think, since his last major.
I can't remember the actual number. It's been a while since his last major win. I think it'd been 14 years since his last Masters win. 11 years, since his last major win for sure. We're looking that up right now. But what I loved about it, and you talked about this too, you can feel this a little bit more as a parent. He had in '97 when he won the Masters this epic hug with his dad.
Yeah.
And it was one of the coolest sports moments ever of seeing a kid and the guy that taught him the game just embracing this moment when you can tell it was finally a big relief. We finally reached that moment.
That picture on its own was big for years and years and years.
Yes.
And then
you can feel how you want to feel about Tiger Woods. You can mention whatever you want to mention about his past and his family life. I get it. That's cool. To each their own. That moment after this Masters win, in which he runs up and hugs his son.
Unbelievable.
And his son is squeezing him, and it's such a beautiful image. He hugs his mother, hugs his daughter as well.
But the picture with his son, and then they, a lot of media
put him side by side.
Side by side with the picture of his father from 2001, whenever it was. That is just an amazing moment. And you know what? Good on Tiger. It's good for golf. And you know what? Yeah, you said everything. Just because you were, there's infidelity in a marriage doesn't mean you're a bad parent necessarily.
Correct.
And by all standards, Tiger Woods has shown to be an exceptional father.
And there are people that won't cheer for him because of his past. I get it. There are people that won't cheer for him. They think he's a bad guy. To each their own. Like I said, he has done things in his life. I won't call them mistakes so much because he did a lot of them on purpose. But he had some problems in his past. But that does not mean.
Don't we all?
Right. That does not mean he's a bad father. Yep. That does not mean he's not a guy who's trying to make things right the rest of the way.
That was a real moment, and I think just as sports fans, we should enjoy that Masters victory. We should, enjoy that picture as human beings. So
most definitely.
All right, episode 3 of Sportsball is now in the books. Sportsball with Nick and Jamal. Don't get that confused. Thanks for watching, everyone. All right.